I married a guy I knew most of my life. We knew each other in high school and even went to prom together. But little did I know, I did not know him at all. I will call my now ex-husband Dirty Chad.
Hey y'all, this is April.
And this is Caroline.
With Bloody Happy Hour.
And we are bringing to you Dirty Chad. Get it on patreon.com/bloodyhappyhour exclusively for all the details and all the red flags.
Caroline's finally telling her story.
My truth.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome to Purpose Driven Sobriety. Thank you for joining the Purpose Driven Sobriety podcast. My name is Christine, and I'm an alcoholic. I would like to, first of all, thank, in a roundabout way, our sponsor for today. And let me, my guest, Craig, let me tell you what happened, Craig. Rick and I, my husband Rick and I, were on a road trip on Route 66. We flew up to Chicago and rented a car and drove back down to Texas via Route 66. So I set the stage, and I took this picture, because I take a lot of pictures, and I took this picture of him in the driver's seat, and I got on social media on Facebook, and I said, "Who wants to see Rick as a girl?" And everybody was like, "Ha, ha, ha, that's so funny." Well, my daughter is an amazing photographer and amazing at Photoshop. So I sent her I didn't tell my husband about this, mind you. So I sent my daughter the picture, and she added long red hair, lipstick, eyelashes. It was priceless to me. Not so much to him, but it was priceless to me. So I went back to social media and I said, okay, if you want to see it, you have to sponsor an episode of Purpose Driven Sobriety Podcast. So a couple of people Venmo'd me some money, and I posted the picture. So to my husband, thank you. I did get his permission, mind you, which I probably wouldn't have done it even if I hadn't gotten his permission. And then, it's easier to beg for forgiveness than it is permission kind of thing. So,
Amen.
So without further ado, Craig Valine, thank you so much for joining me today on the show. I hate calling it a show at times, but you know what it is. I met Craig on the intraweb, right? And I talk about all the time how, on social media, there are some great resources as far as support and experience, strength, and hope and connections with people in our community, in the recovery community. There's some sassholes that always show up in every group. But, that's just like with any meeting, right? You go to a meeting and you see if it fits. And if it doesn't, you just go to another meeting after you make sure that it's not you that's the problem. So, but anyway, yeah. So, Craig, thank you. I put out there that I was looking for someone to come on and share their experience, strength, and hope, and you jumped right at it. And I love. I love our people, if I may call us that recover out loud and are not ashamed to just go, "You're damn right, that's what happened." But that's what happened. This is what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. And so I'm grateful to you for being on today. So we just share, dude. We just share just like we would in a meeting and pray that, we leave the results to God. So without further ado, tell me all the things about you, Craig Valine.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, my sobriety date is 5/5/2019, Cinco de Mayo, 2019. On May 4th, the day before that, I was ready to walk in front of a bus.
Oh, wow.
I had just had it. I had just was on my last leg. That was a Freudian slip, last leg. And I was about to go say goodbye to my son over breakfast. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Lost Weekend.
I don't think so.
It's on Amazon. It's a book about an alcoholic who basically has just decided to end it all. And there was a feeling inside of me that said, I know how I'm going to go now. I know how I can go without making it look like a suicide. Mm-hmm. And, my sponsor says, whenever you say, "Hi, I'm Craig," I'm an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic because whenever I drink, I want to commit suicide. Basically that's what I'm doing. I'm changing the way I feel for a reason.
Right.
And when it doesn't work anymore, then what else is there? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, on May 4th, 2019, I had decided that I was ready to walk in front of a bus. I was sitting outside a coffee shop here in Pasadena, and I parked on the street, and I said, the bus drove by it, and I said, there it is. I can pretend to drop my phone in front of the bus as I'm getting out of the car, and boom. So I'll come back to that on how it all ended up. Obviously, I made it here. But it was a very angelic and a story about how the higher power works in mysterious ways. So I grew up in an alcoholic home in a small town south of Boston called Hull, Massachusetts. And it's a little beach town that's only popular during the summer. It had an amusement park there. People would take the boat over from Boston over to it, spend the day there. But during the winter, it was dead quiet. There was nothing going on. And my mother was what I considered the town drunk. And so she was a tiny little woman. She died at age 36 of this disease from cirrhosis of the liver. And when I was growing up in that home, I swore, like we all do, that I would never be like my mother. And so I didn't drink in high school. I mean, I made once, I think, but I never really got drunk. I never made it a habit. My brother and sister fell into different paths. They're good people, but they still suffer from that a little bit right now. But I never did because I didn't want to be my mother. And my dad had gotten involved in Al-Anon, and next to that Al-Anon meeting was an Alateen meeting. So I got involved. He had brought me and my sister to that meeting. I got very involved. My sister did not. But funny enough, these little towns in New England, it was 4 towns away. And when I got to that meeting, I saw 4 people from my high school class in there.
Oh, I'll be.
So you think you're the only one going through these things, and there were 4 other kids who were quiet in their own way. Some were popular, some weren't, but you just never knew them until you got them in the room in a church basement. So I got very active in Alateen, and in high school I wasn't very popular, but in Alateen I was. I felt like I was somebody. I felt like I found my crew, and they had an Alateen conference once a summer, and I got in the leadership out there. I became the chairperson for that event 3 years in a row, and I was staying out of trouble, living my best life. Now my mom had died when I was 16 years old. So she was 36 when she died. And, my stepfather at the time had found another woman who's in the program. She's 36 years sober, but she was newly sober and she was not fun to be around. I just didn't like her. And I had been very independent at that time because Alateen helped me become, confident.
So hang on, let me ask you. So she was 16. You were 16 when she passed. When did you start going to Alateen?
15.
Oh, really? Okay. So you had a little bit of roots planted right there.
Yeah. But I have to say, because this hit me back in the face when I started drinking, is that I had wished her to pass away so she would stop hurting everybody. Even in Alateen, I was wishing her that.
I get it.
And then she died. Then she died. And so, I have to live with that, right? I have to live with that feeling. So one thing I neglected to say was that during that year before she passed away, I was a foster child because I just couldn't live in that house anymore. She had kicked me out, but I was ready because I had Alateen. I had my bags packed, and I had made a lot of money as a kid because my dad taught me to be entrepreneurial as a kid. So I made a lot of money mowing lawns and doing odd jobs and everything. And she would always say, give me that money because you're just going to waste it on video games. And sure enough, I'd give it to her. She said she would put it in the bank. She said. And then, about a year later, my sister was going to the bank and I said, oh, can I go with you so that I can go see how much money I have in the bank? And I should have like a couple $1,000s in the bank. And got there, and the guy says, "What's your name?" Hold on. Oh, okay. And he wrote down a number on the piece of paper and slid it to me. It was $3.23.
Ouch.
She had never really put the money in the bank. She used it for alcohol. Well, you know how the story goes. So I came back to the house and yelled at the top of my lungs. Number one, because I was angry. Number two, because I knew that you need to confront the alcoholic about the problems that they're causing at that time, right? It's like, can't let them get away with it. So she called the cops on me, said I threatened her with, there's so much backstory to this, but it's just like she was not, as an alcoholic, she was not faithful to my father. So we'll just leave it at that. So when she called the police, we knew the guy. We knew all the story behind them, their relationship. And my father just said, this is a family matter, and he closed the door on the cops. And I didn't really have any place to go. She had told me to get out of the house. I didn't know where to go, but my bags were packed. And for the next week, she would give me shit. Forgive me, I don't mean to swear.
No,
she would give
fine.
me.
You're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
She would give me, hell, just over little things. I didn't clean my room. You're punished. I was the punished kid. I never really had a childhood. I was always punished. But the next weekend, they went to a family barbecue and I was left home because I was punished. So I had given a call to a friend in Alateen, and he wasn't there, but his foster father was. And his foster father was a recovering alcoholic. And he says, how you doing? What's going on? How's she treating you? If you ever need a place to go, you can come here. I said, thank you so much. I'm going to go. I've been on the phone too long. It was like 15, 20 minutes. About 20 minutes later, my mom pulls in the driveway, and she's like, I've been calling for an hour. You've been on the phone for an hour. You're not supposed to be on the phone. You're on the phone, yada, yada, yada. Get out. I don't want you here anymore. Get out. And she was drunk. She just wanted to come home and be drunk, to drink without my dad seeing her do it, and my sister and all that stuff. And if I was in the house, I'd see her drink. So she's like, get out. So I said, good. I have a place to go. So I had very little money on me, but I had just enough for what in Boston, it's the MBTA, the T. And so I had enough to walk to the next town, take a bus to the train station, take the train all the way over to the other side of Boston, and go there. So I showed up, and it was like, wow, yeah. Needless to say, I became a foster child shortly after that for a year. And I got to grow. And through that, I got exposed to AA, because when there wasn't a meeting, an Alateen meeting, my foster father would say, you have to go to a meeting. So if there's not a meeting, go to an AA meeting so you can hear the stories of the other alcoholics and stuff like that. So, this is when the smoke-filled rooms of AA in the 80s, I'm glad I don't miss those.
I know, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you're a smoker. I'm not. But,
I was when I first came in, and I was thankful at the time for the smoking meetings. But
yeah, you got to have something.
Back
right?
then, you could actually smoke at the podium. Yeah. It's shortly after it was phased out. So I'm sorry. I digress. Go ahead.
That's all right. So this is getting somewhere.
No,
so,
you're fine.
So anyway, so I was a foster child, and a year to the date, my mom and dad had split up. My mom was living somewhere else, and my dad was home with my half brother, my little brother, and he was young at the time. And so my dad, on the year to the date, came to pick me up to bring me home, and basically I became a babysitter. And I had just gained all this independence, being a foster child, having to go to meetings, take the train everywhere. As a teenager, I learned a lot of independence. And all of a sudden, I'm stuck in the house all the time, and I just couldn't have it. So then my mom passed away, and he met this woman. She moved in almost immediately. So I moved out again, and I still haven't graduated high school yet. So I moved in with a family from Alateen, and they say, hey, if you're going to live here, you have to get a job. So a part-time job after school. We know where you can get it, at a CVS pharmacy in Boston. And sure enough, I did. And then I met a woman. And that woman, I fell madly in love with. She got pregnant. Yada, 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 yada. So I had to stop going to high school because I had to work to be a young father. And we ended up getting married, kind of against my will, but I was kind of coerced into doing it from all sides. But I didn't want to be, because this woman was very emotionally abusive, physically, emotionally. And I just didn't want to be in that environment. And I had lost touch with all my roots with Alateen, and I'd actually exposed her to Alateen. But she got all the friends. And so I went to other meetings outside, outside of that. And anyway, I just went on with my life. And one of my Alateen friends said, "Hey, you should graduate high school. We'll let you live with us so you can go back and graduate high school." So this was like a year later. And I should have graduated in 85. And instead I graduated in 87. Lots of little things happened. But ultimately, I graduated high school, walked across the stage from a different high school, and went to work. And after I started working, I was an EMT for a private company that was a backup company for the city of Boston. And at this time, my ex is doing everything in her power to keep me from seeing my daughter. Every guy she's meeting is going to be my daughter's new father, and she keeps on asking me, "Hey, I'm going to get married to this guy. We want to take her last name. And I want Emily to have, her last name." And I said, "No, no, no." I said it 3 times. And then on the 4th time, my daughter was calling this guy daddy because I wasn't there, and it was pissing me off. And I said, "Cut the effing stuff, knock it off. You're not going to get full custody. You're not going to do that." Well, a week later, I came to pick up my daughter for the weekend. We were taking her to a Christmas parade, me and another mother figure in my life, someone who kind of adopted me and kind of took me in. And during that time, my daughter was having, we'll just say, medical issues. And so when I got home, I had said to her mother, I said, "Look, she had this medical issue. I wanted you to know about it. You should probably take her to the doctor." And as I was returning her, she was being extra nice to me. When somebody's not being themselves. And I just said, that was weird. But she's like, "Hey, what are you getting Emily for Christmas?" And yada. I mean, this woman didn't like this sight of me. Why was she asking me these questions? So the following Wednesday, I'm calling to set up plans for the next weekend to pick up my daughter, and she hangs up on me. And I said, "That's weird." And I'm working at this time on the ambulance, and I'm in between calls, so I'm just calling. And I call again, she hangs up on me again. She call again, she hangs up on me. And so I'm not too far away from her house. So I tell the dispatcher, I said, "I'm going to take time off just to go check out what's going on. It's not right." So I go, and I'm able to walk up to her patio doors, and my daughter runs to the window and goes, "Hi, Daddy, hi, Daddy." And then her mother comes running and takes her away, closes the curtains, and the lights turn off. And about 5 minutes later, 2 cop cars show up. And so I'm in uniform, so I'm in an official City of Austin uniform. So they, treat me professionally, and they say, "Are you Craig Valine?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "We have a call that you're violating a restraining order." And I said, "What?" I said, "I just had my daughter on Saturday. How could that be?" And they said, "Well, why don't you stay out here with this officer? I'll go in and find out what's going on." So we're just talking shop and everything like that. And the other cop comes out and goes, "Well, you do have a restraining order. It just you weren't served it yet, but this is official notice." And I'm like, "What for?" And they said, "Well, we can't tell you. You have to go to the courthouse." So I go to the courthouse. I take more time off from work. I find out that she accused me of hurting my daughter, the thing that I had told about the medical issue. It said that she went to this hospital and they found this, that, and the other thing happening. So I went, and I knew the nurses at this hospital. So I'm like, I'm getting as much information as I can. What happened? What did she come in for? What did they find? Da, 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 da. And they're not able to talk to me. They said, "If you want to go up to medical records." And so sure enough, they stopped me. But she had accused me of hurting my daughter. And so this went before the state police and the district attorney's office and everything. And they dropped the case because there were too many holes in it. It just didn't add up. And I had the witness that I was with, the mother figure that I was with. I told them verbatim from the moment I picked her up to what happened the moment I dropped her off. Same story from my mother-in-law, my mother figure. And my little brother was with us too, so he was with us. But at that time, I was now held without seeing my daughter. And every person that I knew in Alateen had now turned against me. And these were my people. These were the people that I had friended, that liked me, loved me, trusted me, and I loved them, and the same thing. And all of a sudden they turned me. They never asked me what had happened. They just heard the accusation. So I'm now left feeling alone, hopeless, lost. And I didn't really drink at this time. Now I'm 21 years old, and I start going out for drinks after work with these guys because it was an Irish pub 2 blocks over for firefighters, police officers, and EMS. And so I was a regular there. And just about from that day on, I was blacking out. From then on, I was told to go talk to an attorney, go see if you can get custody and all this other stuff. And a couple of attorneys saw me and they said, "How much money do you have?" And I said, "I don't have much." And they said, "Well, let me tell you the truth about the matter. It's going to cost you a lot of money. It seems like she does not want you to have custody. And so what she has is, she had money. She came from money. She had it all. I didn't have anything." She said, basically, I was told by a few different attorneys, if your daughter remembers you truly for who you are, then just wait till she comes to seek you out. And we had no idea about social media or anything like that by then. This was back in, God, 95, 94, 95. No, 92, sorry. Anyway, so I had decided to move. I had an opportunity to move to California to be an EMT or a police officer. I was looking to become a police officer, actually. And so I tested with multiple agencies. I even lived with the police chief of Monterey Park at the time because my girlfriend at that time, her relative was the chief of police, and he was retiring. So I was there. I had an in sort of about what to look for in the test, and I tested top notch in all the tests, several different tests. And they have to do a background check, and 10 years. And so guess who they had to call? My daughter's mother. And my daughter's mother said, "Well, he was accused of this thing, and I don't know, they didn't find anything, but what do you think?" That kind of bull crap.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I moved 3,000 miles away, and why is she still trying to ruin my life? She has my daughter. What is she trying to do? And so from that moment on, that was like the bullet piercing the bulletproof vest. That was it. I was dead inside. And so that was around 1990. And from that time on, I just drank to fill the pain, fill the void. And so, so that's where it was with that relation. That's what made me drink to solve that problem of feeling empty, lost, hopeless, shameful because I lost my daughter. I had no strength, nothing to back me up to get my daughter. And so, like I said, blackout drinking for a long time. I ended up moving back to Boston in 90. I lived out here during the LA riots, and I got caught in them, and it kind of scared me. So I said, I'm going to move back. And so for the next 4 years, alcohol would take over my life. And, one episode after another would ultimately lead me back out here to LA because I couldn't work. I was temping, and I was losing every job. Then I just had no self-esteem. I had no self-worth, no negative self-image, everything. I just, and when I would bump into people, see people on the train that knew me from Alateen, they would just stare me down like I was evil, and I'm like, ask me what happened.
Oh, man,
Let me defend myself, And so I just decided that I had met someone out here prior, just before I moved out, and she says, "Hey, I have a ticket to the Rose Parade. I'm going to camp out on the Rose Parade. Do you want to come out here?" And I said, yes, I do. So I flew out and camped out on the Rose Parade, and I got introduced to a guy who needed a marketing director, and we hit it off. And so 3 months later, I ended up moving out March of 1996. And so in my search while I was here, well, actually, the woman helped find me a place to live, but she was showing me places that I could hang out and everything. She goes, "Oh, they have a great happy hour. This place called La Fiesta Grande." They had these, forgive me as a lady, but it's the only way I describe it. They had these D cups for margaritas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very,
and so
very
I would
large
have
margaritas.
large margaritas. I say it that way because that's how I described
No,
it to
I
everybody.
gotcha. I gotcha.
So, and they were extra topping.
Mm-hmm.
And the bartender got to know me. He would call me chupacabras when I come in. I don't know if you know what that is. Chupacabras is a mythical goat-eating monster in Mexico.
Oh, goodness.
And so, like Norm of Cheers, he would call me chupacabras,
Oh.
And so he'd always have my margarita ready, and I felt at home there. Every time, there were some times where I drank way too much, and they'd have to say, "Go home, go home." But most times they welcomed me in, and I treated it like it was my place. And so,
Kind of like you did with Alateen, huh?
yeah, yeah, everybody knew me.
That sense of belonging, that sense of these are my people, that sense
Yeah,
of, yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
And funny enough, when I moved out to LA the first time, um, I came. I arrived at the house that I was staying at. They left the key under the mat. I went and just kind of sat down and turned on the TV, and there was Tony Robbins interviewing Fran Tarkenton and describing the personal power program. And it just really caught my eye. So I got very much into personal development when I first came out because I felt like a piece of crap. So I was just trying to, rebuild my status up. I had growing up, I had my mother saying, "You're a piece of crap. You're just like your father." And I had my grandmother saying, "You're a good person. You can be anything you want in the world." The angel and the devil on your head, on the shoulders. So that part of me that still believed I was a good person heard something on TV that said, "I want to tap into my personal power." And so I started becoming a serious student, reading all books and, on sales training, on personal development, Think and Grow Rich, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar. And I constantly read, attend seminars, listen to tapes. I got into sales at some jobs, so I had access to Tom Hopkins and everybody else. Only people who are in that trade really know who those names are, but I know you're in the mortgages,
Yeah,
so you
I
probably
do. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I walked on fire with Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Funny enough, I walked on fire several times during my drinking, hoping to change my life because of that. And I even became a volunteer at his events, and so it just what I've found is there's no personal development program like AA to really do the work, the 12 steps, because I read every book. I'm full of wisdom. You can quiz me on any book that you've read or that I just mentioned, and I can recite it word for word. But did it impact me, or did it change the way that I felt about myself and the way I treated other people? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, La Fiesta Grande was my place, and for the next 20 years, I would drink there and drink to oblivion. And what's funny is that child number 2 came along from a woman that we had a soap opera beginning. It was kind of a soap opera beginning. It was kind of like magical. Her name is Illy, ILI, short for Ilona. And I said, "Oh my God, I signed my cards ILY, and I say Illy to say I love you." So that's how we got connected. That was great, my pickup line for her. And we met through an organization, the JCs. I don't know if you're familiar with that organization, Junior Chamber of Commerce. They do volunteer work, and Pasadena happens to have a very large chapter. And I got involved with them early on, just to keep busy and do volunteer work around the city. And I met her at a new member orientation. And again, yada, 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 we got married. We got engaged let me correct that. We never got married. We got engaged very quickly. And then soap opera happened, and we got separated. And during that time, it was very hard to ignore her because I loved her, but I was knew we shouldn't be together. And so I saw her at every event, and that my heart would pitter patter, even though I was dating somebody else at the time. It's like every time I saw her, my heart would bounce out of my chest. But at one point I reached a stage where I said, enough is enough. I can't be 100% true to the girl that I'm with because I'm thinking about Illy all the time, and I can't be with Illy because of we just have too many problems. And so 3 months later, after I made that decision, she calls up one Friday night, and I'm broke and I have nothing to do, and she goes, "Hey, I just got a gift certificate to a restaurant in Beverly Hills. Do you want to go? Can you handle it?" And I said, "Yeah, I can handle it. Let's go." Well, we ate, drank, went to a topless club. I don't know how that happened. And then 9 months later, I have a son.
So you handled it.
I handled it. When she got pregnant, I was very depressed because I had lost a child already. I didn't want to bring another child into the world and have the opportunity to lose that person either. And so I was massively depressed for most of her pregnancy. And for the most part, she was very understanding until it started affecting her. And, I was non-functional, couldn't work, couldn't make any money. I was massively depressed and suicidal all the time. At one point, I was out at La Fiesta Grande one night and saw my ex, the girlfriend I had been dating shortly after her. And I ended up going over to the house and I blacked out and fell asleep and everything. And she had Illy had thrown my stuff out on the lawn. And I said, that's it. I don't want to live this way. And I walked up the ramp to the freeway and I was ready to walk in front of a truck. Because what happens when Craig drinks, he gets suicidal. And so, fortunately, she followed me up in the car and she stopped me. I was just crying, sobbing. Because I didn't want, number one, I hated the way I felt about myself and at that time in the state of my life. But I just didn't want to bring another child in the world the way that I was, and nor did I want to lose that child. So I have a 22-year-old son. He's a beautiful boy. But most of his childhood, I had to apologize for my drinking to him. His mother would go off on me many times. We still never got married yet, by the way. We all live together right now, and I'll tell you how that happened. That was a miracle. We all live together now, and he's just graduated college, and that's a miracle. Again, I'll get there. But I had just been sick and tired of walking in shame all my life, feeling like a loser because I lost my daughter, because I couldn't provide because I was so depressed all the time. I was always waking up in situations which, what's the word? Demoralizing, right? Mm-hmm. Situations which I would never do sober. When I would wake up on the couch hungover or still drunk sometimes, Illy would be saying, "You're such a piece of crap. I can't," and I'm like, and I would cry and say, "I'm a good person. But funny enough that all through my son's life, all through my son's childhood, I volunteered at his classes. I volunteered at school. I was in the drop-off line, letting kids out safely out of their cars. I was always there to pick him up. I was always getting him ready for school, making him breakfast, getting out of the door on time, drunk, hungover, or whatever. I was always picking him up. I was always at his events. And these were things that my mother never did. She never showed up for an event when I needed it. Or if she did, she made a fool of me, or of herself, I should say. But because I had this incongruency, I didn't think I deserved to be his father, yet I wanted to be the best father I could be. And the funny, I don't know what the word is, but the funny thing about it is, everybody thought I was the best father ever. They said, "You're such a good father."
The irony of it, yeah.
And I'm like, if only you knew,
if only you could see behind the curtain. Yep.
Yeah, because I felt like a piece of crap. And I remember one Christmas thing when he was very young. He went to a Catholic elementary school, and he was in one of his first shows. And I had been drinking prior to that, the D cups. And I showed up, and his mother saw me and said, "What are you doing here? Get out of here! You don't." And so I said, "No, I have a right to be here. Hi, Bubba." I call him Bubba. And so I went to the back of the church while she was at the front of the church. And one of the parents had said, "Your son's up there. Go up there. Go take pictures of him." And I'm like, no. Like, why? Get up there. Go see. I was ashamed because I knew I was drunk. I knew that I would probably embarrass them if I got up there. So I said, no. And this guy couldn't understand. He's like, "What's wrong with you?" Wow. I'm drunk. So there were lots of episodes like that. But again, volunteered every single day, got him up from, I'm a very routine driven. So he was up at the same time every day, out the door at the same time. We were at school at the same time, picked him up at the same time, got to he loved to run. He wasn't very athletic, but he loved to run. So we did track and cross country, and, I was always there to support him. And, but yet I felt like a piece of crap, So in 2016, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know if I was sick and tired or if I was kicked out. We don't know which one happened, but I ultimately decided that it's time for me to go. And even if I have to sleep in my car, I can't live here anymore because I just embarrassed the family so many times. I just can't do it. And so for a few days, I slept in my car. Went to the bars, but I slept in my car. And my son had an opportunity to run up at Stanford University for in a all California high school run. It was his first opportunity, and I had nowhere to go, so I said I'll drive up there too, and I'll follow. And it's about 6 hours away. But on the way out, I emailed my list of clients. I'm a marketing consultant by trade, so I ran a group as a way to generate new clients of entrepreneurs and things like that. And they're like family. So I reached out to them and I said, look, I can't tell you why, but I need a place to stay. And because my finances were horrible and I couldn't tell them that, I said, I'm looking for a relative who has an extra room in a house or a guest house, not an apartment building. I'm just looking for an extra room, to stay for a little while. And 4 people had reached out immediately. And one in particular had 26 years sobriety under her. And I knew her well. And she said, hey, look, I got a loft in my house, $700 a month. I could do that. I said, yes. And the reason I chose her was because if I was going to get better, she was the one to help guide me there.
Yeah, I'm surprised you did choose her. I mean, because at least for me, back in the throes of it, it's like I avoided those kinds of people because they might get on me. They might, I mean, so it sounds like you were really getting to the end where
I was getting to the end of being sick and tired. And one thing I left out was that I had reconnected with a friend from Boston that I hadn't really been in touch with for 20 years. Somehow on social media, we reconnected and we started talking every week. And while I'd be walking around the Rose Bowl, I would call her and, would just tell her the shame that I felt. And she would just fill me with positive energy and just kind of say, you're a good person. Go see a therapist. Go to AA. Go, she started the process of me getting that in my mind. And so I started reaching those points where I was saying to myself, I can't live this way anymore. But it wasn't deep enough yet. I would still have about 3 more months to go. So I moved in with this woman and we know each other through the Chamber of Commerce, and she belonged to my entrepreneurs group and everything. But she'd say, if you don't have anything to do, go to a meeting, And so every once in a while, I would pop up to a meeting and just kind of listen. And I never really said, hi, I'm Craig, I'm an alcoholic. But one time I did. And that was after the night before I had been drinking, and I pulled out of a stop sign with my gas and I skidded out and hit a curb. And I was like, my front was all smashed in and everything. And I was just like, I can't live this way. What am I doing? And so the next day I went to that meeting that I had always gone to just sit in and listen. And I finally said, hi, I'm Greg, I'm an alcoholic. And I started crying. I was just reaching that point. It's like when you finally say it and you mean it, when you have to, it's just a release. Right? And all these sweet old ladies just came up and like, oh, honey, here's a meeting guide. Here's a book. Here's a big book. Here's a 12 and 12 and all that stuff. And it would still take me a few months to get there full time. But I went on occasion. But I was still feeling like a piece of crap. I was still, blacking out. Sometimes I didn't even remember the address to the place I lived. And somehow I got home from a bar and someone put me in an Uber or whatever. I don't know how. I don't know. It's God working in mysterious ways. But on January 2nd, 2017, I went, my roommate was having a parade pre-party. So we were living right down the street from the Rose Parade. And so people would come there, have breakfast, and then walk up to the parade to watch it. And I didn't want to be there. So I left at 6 a.m. and there's this awesome flyover of the B-2 bomber that comes over. It comes like about 100 feet above Colorado Boulevard. It's just amazing. So my friend says, hey, why don't you come over? We'll have mimosas and we'll watch the B-2 bomber fly over the house. Except they're not mimosas. They're 99% vodka and 1% orange juice. So they were screwdrivers or vodka with a splash of orange juice. And we started drinking at 6 a.m., waiting for the B-2 bomber to fly over the house. And I drank all day. And then, somehow, some way I made it home at night. And I fell down a flight of stairs, the stairs that I would go up to in the house, and scared me, scared her, my roommate and her dog, but woke up again demoralized. I'll tell the descriptive story because I think every alcoholic who's listening to this has to hear it. I had peed my pants. I had thrown up. I was naked in my bed, but I just, my shoes were all wet from peeing in my pants and everything. It was just like, at that point, I thought, I just can't live this way anymore. So I didn't, my car wasn't even at home. The friend that I had been drinking with the day before called and I said, "Where's my car?" It's like, what happened? They said, "Dude," like, "Dude, you blacked out and your head fell on the counter of the bar, and so-and-so put you in an Uber and sent you home." And so I said, "I can't live this way anymore." And so I went out. I had to take an Uber to get my car. And I just stayed out most of the day because I didn't want to face my roommate. But I finally did. And I walked in, and she's one of the sweetest people in the world you could ever meet. And she was just the meanest, the most serious. She wasn't mean. She was
honest. Ooh, isn't it funny how we take honest as mean?
Well, compared, yeah. She wasn't mean. She was saying exactly what needed to be said. She goes, "Look, I don't want you here anymore. I thought when you got here you were going to get sober, but obviously you're not going to." So she goes, I don't care if you find a halfway house or whatever you need to do, sober living, whatever, but you can't stay here anymore. So find a place to live." And for the rest of the day, I just went upstairs and stared at the wall. I was numb. It was literally 6 hours staring at the wall, not knowing what to do, what my life was going to be. I could barely afford to live there, or how was I going to get, help and all this stuff. And so the next morning I could hear her walking downstairs and she said, "Craig, come here." And I came down the stairs and she goes, "I'm going to a meeting and I'll be back and I want to meet you in the living room and we're going to have a talk." So she came back about 2 hours later and I just sobbed. I was just sobbing. She goes, "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to a meeting today. You're going to find a sponsor. You're going to do what he tells you to do. You're going to get commitments. You're going to go through the steps. You're going to do the work. And then you're going to help other alcoholics to stay sober too." And I said, "Okay." And I just thank you for that. So she sent me to one meeting that was the oldest meeting west of the Mississippi. It wasn't there. I'm like, "It's not there." She goes, "The oldest meeting west of the Mississippi isn't there." She goes, "Okay, here's another meeting. Go to this meeting." So I go to another meeting and it's a women only meeting. And I said, "Sorry, you can't come in. You got to go to another meeting."
No.
So I called again. She goes, "All right, here, go to this meeting over here." And I'm like, "All right, I'll go. I'll call you." Not there. So I go to 3 meetings and they're not there and I can't get in. Finally, she goes, "All right, this is the last chance." She goes, "There's a meeting starting in 3 minutes at Las Encinas down the street. Get there, do whatever you got to do to get a meeting in tonight." So I go, and sure enough, there was a meeting and they had started late. So, because I had arrived late, they had started late, like they were waiting for me. But I made it there. And sure enough, this guy who's the leader for the night, he says, "Hi, my name's Blair, and I don't effing want to be here." He goes, "It's my night off from work. I want to be home with my wife. But when AA calls, I come because it saved my life." And I said, "That's who I want as my sponsor." So sure enough, at the end of the night, when they say who here can be a sponsor, raise your hand. He raised his hand. So I went right up to him and I said, "Hi, I'm Craig. I'm an alcoholic and I need a sponsor." And so we went out and kind of talked and told him my story. And he says, "Here's what I want you to do every day. I want you to text me every day your willingness for the day and what you're grateful for." And I wasn't really familiar with the word willingness. I mean, I know what the word is, but I never used it in my life. But I said, "Give me context." He goes, "What are you willing to do today that you weren't willing to do while you were drinking?" And I said, "Okay." And then gratitude. Why gratitude? He goes, "Just text me what you're grateful for." And so I did that. And I was mostly sober for a year and a half. And I say mostly sober because I worked the program. I shouldn't say I worked the program. I did the program I went to meetings I did about 5 meetings a week. And funny enough, our areas, there's like 3,000 meetings in Los Angeles area. So, people from other meetings. At some meeting, there's someone from another meeting that and,
Sure.
you just see it's family, you
Yeah.
see that it's like going over to different families' houses. You see the
Right.
same relatives.
Or going to different bars. I mean, let's
Right,
call
right.
it what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I had some moments of insobriety, and I say moments because they weren't binges; they were just one night stands. I call them one night stands of insobriety over an 18-month period. And but I would continue with my program. If I drank one night, I continued going. I didn't tell anybody, but I just kept going to my meetings, and I went through the steps with my sponsor, and I held on to that little thing that caused a lot of weight on my shoulders, um, but I just kept going and doing it. And then, I had tried to reconcile with Illy at the time, but she was still angry. She was happy that I was in the program, but she was still very, very angry. Came out in many ways. And I was supposed to get surgery that year for my shoulder, and I had asked permission. I said, can I stay at the house because I'm not going to be able to move my shoulder and I need help. And we did this over dinner, and she and my son said, yeah, you can stay here. And then, like a week before my surgery, she says, no, get someone else to help you. I'm tired of doing this for you. And so at that time I had met another woman, and coincidentally she was from Boston, where I'm from, but she lived in California. She was a police lieutenant with LAPD, and we just had a lot in common. And she had asked me if I wanted to watch football on Sunday at a specific time, and I was going to lie to her and said I had church, but I said, you know what, I got to be brutally honest. I said, look, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I'm in charge of the donuts for the Sunday meeting. And it was what seemed like a minute pause, but it was like a few seconds. She goes, I'm in charge of the coffee.
Shut up. That's awesome.
So because I wasn't getting anywhere with with Illy here, I decided to move forward with this other woman, and she was really in the program to try to get her job back. This was her second offense. She had already had a DUI, and then she had come in she had some trauma in her life, so she was drinking bourbon till all hours of the day, and she came into work drunk. She was a police officer, a lieutenant for the police department, and she came in drunk. So she was trying to get her job back, and so we had different reasons for getting sober. But we went to meetings together, and I just fell madly in love. And as you can probably tell, I made her my higher power. And so I took a dirty cake the first year because I had already been drinking, but she made the cake. She went to the meeting. She celebrated my first year sober. But she realized at some point she wasn't going to get her job back. So she officially retired so she could get her benefits. And her father and her sister lived in Las Vegas, which is about 4 hours. So it's a 1 hour flight from here. It's 4 hours drive. And my son is like senior in high school at this time. So I'm seeing less and less of him. He's driving himself to school. I don't really get to see him except for one dad and son date, breakfast a month. And so I said, I can move to Vegas too. And so we did. The moment I decided to move to Vegas, the moment I made that decision, which was April 2018, life went to shit. I lost major clients. The bank reversed 3 months of billings that I had done for a client because I didn't recognize the billing, or he said he didn't recognize it, which backed up everything else. The IRS was on my case. It was just bad. So by the time we moved to Vegas in September of 2018, I was on the verge of of catastrophe. To get on to make it worse, her family, her sister was Miss Nosy Nose Button the Third. She was just in our business, wanted to know everything. She was like a trial attorney who wouldn't go without getting all the facts. I mean, she just. So I had a DUI back in before I moved out to here. So it was like 96, just before I moved out here. And for some reason, the things didn't resolve themselves. There was paperwork undone, and I hadn't fixed them. So my license was expired for a long time here in California. So that one was my Massachusetts license that was suspended because of that DUI, and I couldn't renew my California thing until I fixed that problem. So I couldn't. She was saying, "Why doesn't he do Uber? Why doesn't he do this, that?" Because I can't, because I don't have a valid driver's license. And so then she started turning on me. Her sister started turning on me, and I was not included in family events. And I was, being talked to, she was belittling me to my girlfriend at the time. So now it was me and my girlfriend. Who's my girlfriend going to pick ultimately, right? Her family or me? So this weighed on her a lot. And I finally I finally reached the point of F it. I reached the point where I've got to drink. And so they had gone out for the day, and I went to a bar in Vegas and just had a beer. And it felt so good. It just felt so good at the time because I was feeling so lost, empty. Again, I was feeling all those feelings I felt before. And what I didn't want the girlfriend at the time to find out was how bad it used to be, how all the shame that I used to feel and why I felt that way. And so I was still semi-recovered Craig with now drinking Craig. So I still had some program because we were still going to meetings, right?
Right.
But, I came back for business following month, and I even went to my Saturday meeting in the park. I go to a park. It's called Grand Park Meeting. It's beautiful. It's a little park, view of the mountains. You have kids playing in the background. When the kids play t-ball, it's so much joy fills your heart because they're so silly and they're so cute, and it's just fun to watch. And so even if I can't hear someone talking in the meeting, it's just a joy to be there. And so I'm back from Vegas for the weekend to spend with my son. And I'm at that meeting, and I get a text during the meeting that he canceled. And remember, I've already reached the effort stage. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take the train to Santa Monica, and I'm going to go get shit-faced. So I do. And I'm thinking about drinking the whole time that I'm at the meeting, but then I get right on the train and I take the Gold Line to Santa Monica, and I stay there all night. And, that was the beginning of the end, near the end, I should say. So I came home, and my girlfriend wasn't home when I got back, and I had drank 2 beers out of the refrigerator because she had started drinking again. And she goes, "Hey, where are the 2 beers?" And I said, "I had them." She goes, "Oh, okay." And so it was acceptable to drink around her. And so we didn't just have a couple beers. We, on average, drank 3 to 5 bottles of wine a night. It was just, that was what would make it normal until I started getting the shakes, which I never had in my life. Everything started going to hell. All those things that had fallen off that I'd fixed, with the financial standpoint, getting clients, all of a sudden in January of that year, of the 2019, everything closed again. And I was having panic attacks. I couldn't pay the rent for my girlfriend's house. I couldn't, there was just so much. Every once in a while I'd get a little bit of money, just enough to pay my son's school. And I would freak out if I couldn't do that, but could barely pay my son's school. And then I used a little bit of money I had to take her out, take her out to dinner and do something nice, go to a show. And then I'd be out of money for the rest of the month. So I just wanted to die every day. I asked God to take me every day. And she was a cop, so she had guns around the house. And there were 2 times that I put the gun under the table. And she had a dog named Khaleesi, who was an Alaskan Malamute. And if you know those dogs, they're very hairy. So the dog would come up all smiles and come between my legs and the gun on the table and just look up at me and smile. It was God showing up in a weird way. But it pissed me off because the hair would be all over my pants and I couldn't get it off. And I'm like, get away from me. But it saved me from shooting myself. And that happened a couple times. Especially when I would get alerts from the IRS or alerts from the bank and say, you owe us money, put the money back in the bank account. And then my phone wasn't working. And, it was horrible. It was horrible. Every day I asked to be taken, to take my life. I even tried to take, I'd seen a news item where the guy from 90210 who died from a stroke, young guy, Luke something.
Luke Perry.
Yeah, Luke Perry. He had died from a stroke. And I had seen in the news that if you took too much ibuprofen, or if you had it would exceed your high blood pressure and you could die from a stroke that way. And I said, oh, okay. So I started taking handfuls of ibuprofen. And I'm not a drug user, so I never was into that. But I was just taking handfuls of ibuprofen every 10 minutes and all it did was make me constipated.
Oh, gosh.
It didn't kill me, although my organs were very sensitive, and so it was doing something.
Yeah.
But so on the end of April, I'm obviously having problems with my girlfriend at the time because I'm not performing. I'm not performing in any way, shape, or form, socially, personally, emotionally, anything. She finally says, "Why don't you go back and see your son?" And I said, "Well, I don't have any money to get back." She goes, and I had never really told her the whole story. So she thinks I have money, but I don't, and I'm just being cheap. You don't have any money. I had to borrow money from a client who was a friend who had helped me out before. And I said, "Can you front me the money for the work that I'm going to do?" And he goes, "Yeah, no problem at all." So I go back and she leaves a note for me in the morning. "Why don't you stay there? Don't come back." And she had left $200, which I didn't want to take. I just left it there and I needed it, but I didn't take it. So I'm driving all the way back across the desert to LA. And I just want to die. I'm just driving with shakes like this. And I just want to turn in front of a big Mack truck or something like that, drive off a cliff. And somehow, some way I made it back into LA. And it felt good. The moment I saw the mountains and I saw LA traffic, I knew I was home. But I quickly reconnected with the guy I used to drink with most. And he is a unique being because he's a massive alcoholic who's dying of this disease still. We're not close anymore. I don't talk because I just can't. But he had said some pretty profound things while I was with him. He goes, "All right, if you're going to be separated from your girlfriend, do you want to live in Vegas or do you want to live here?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to live here." He goes, "You need a car." And I had sold my car because I had to pay for things. So I was using her car. She goes, "You need a car. Will she give you your car?" And I said, "I could buy it from her." He goes, "Good." He goes, "Well, you need a benefactor." He goes, "You need someone to give you money." He goes, "Could you find a job to make some quick money?" Because I wasn't making any money in my business. It was all going back to pay the bank and pay everybody else. And so I realized we're going long at here. Are we okay on time?
Yeah, we've got we got about 15 minutes.
Okay, I'm getting there.
No,
I'm
you're
getting
good.
there.
You're good.
This is my journey.
You're good. You're good. Go right ahead.
So he says, I say, "Oh, the guy that I borrowed the money from originally, he just said to me yesterday he's looking for a guy to do this at his shop. I'll call and see if I can do that." And so I reached out to him and he goes, "No," he goes, "that job wouldn't be for you." But he goes, "I'll tell you what, you can rely on me for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Be there on Monday morning and I'll pay you for work." And so shaking like this, I went to work. And, the guy that I was going to work for the week, his office is up against railroad tracks. And every morning that I would hit, the train was coming down the tracks. And I was the first one there. And I just still had those suicidal thoughts of driving in front of the train just to end it. And so I didn't, thank God. I made it through the week because a week later I would get sober. But that week was hell, because I was, I just, again, it's just all this stuff staying in me. I felt lonely. I felt lost. I felt like I had nobody except this guy that I was drinking with. And what's worse? The worst thing for an alcoholic who's been in the program or been sober once is knowing there's a solution. And then you're not taking advantage of that solution.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So I'm going to speed up for time's sake. So a week later, Saturday morning, May 4th, 2019, I'm sitting in a coffee shop waiting to go have breakfast with my son. And at this point, I hadn't decided I was going to die. I just felt like I was going to die until I saw that bus drive by my car on the street. And I said, there it is. Because I had wanted to die so many times, but I didn't want to hurt my son. My son was supposed to graduate high school in a few weeks from then. And so I didn't want, hey, your dad killed yourself just before you graduated. But if I died by accident, that'd be totally different on the psyche, right? So I had seen this bus go by and I said, that's how I'm going to do it. And so with all the confidence in my mind and certainty that that's how I was going to go, I met up with him at this place in the town next to us. And he started walking towards me, but it wasn't him. It was an angel, because he wasn't himself. I don't know if you have a teenager or anything, but teenagers typically aren't very talkative. They're very standoffish. They don't really tell you. When you ask them questions, they repeat one answer, one word answers. And number one, the hug that I got from him was not the typical hug that I would get from. We, love each other. We're very close, but he was still a teenager. But he just hugged me extra long, and it felt different. And then he started telling me what he was working on in school, this project, this website that he was working on and everything. And he showed it to me, and he was just lit up as he was talking. He kept touching my hand, which was very different. And, at the end, I was getting ready to say goodbye. And I said, bye, Bubba. I love you. And he gave me an extra long hug and a big kiss on the cheek. And I just felt this energy go through me. And I said, what am I going to do now? And I heard God, after not hearing God for 8 months, because I'd asked him to take me. I heard there's a meeting in the park. Why don't you go to it? And so I was led to the park, that park that I was just mentioning, Grant Park. And I was all disheveled because I was still drunk from the night before, and I reeked and everything. And I walked up to the picnic table that they all sit at. And this woman who I was close with, who also had a teenage son and was worried about her teenage son and this disease and everything, she said, hey, how you doing? When was the last time you had a drink? And I said, last night. She goes, I can tell. Come here. Give me a big hug.
Oh.
And then everybody else around the table just grabbed me and hugged me tight and talked to me and loved me and everything. And I was just like, I'm home. This is where I need to be. But I still was shaking like this. So I had to go drink that day, even though I didn't want to. I went straight to the bar and I just milked a beer for several hours. I had 2 beers throughout the whole day. And the next morning I woke up and I'm at this coffee shop again. And the reason I'm at the coffee shop, because I'm staying at a friend's house and he wants me out of the house when he goes to work. So I'm sitting at the coffee shop and I'm just like, what am I going to do today? And then again, I hear God say, hey, there's a meeting at South Pasadena. Why don't you go to it? So I go, all right. And I walk into the hall and a woman who knew me from before said, oh my God. And then she got serious and she goes, oh my God, come here. And she big hug. And she goes like this, Elizabeth, come here. Craig needs our help. And so Elizabeth comes over and goes, hey, serious look, and then hugs and doesn't let me go. And then she goes, come here. And she grabs my arm and hugs me around the room. She goes, hey, Joe, Craig needs our help. Give me your phone number. Hey, Mike, Craig needs your help. Give me your phone number. Hey, Louise, Craig needs your help. Give me your phone number. And, it was just an amazing feeling to know again that I was in the right place. And this is what I was missing. So the speaker that day was a guy who 8 minutes of his talked about the very same things that I was willing to kill myself over, which was all the financial stuff, all the shame that he felt because of it, because he couldn't provide for his family, and how that had resolved. And now he was 15 years sober. And I said, well, if he could do it, I could do it. It gave me hope, right? And so I hadn't reconnected with my sponsor yet. And this woman, Elizabeth, she goes, I want you to connect with him. I want you to get his number. And until you reconnect with your sponsor, let him be your sponsor. So called him later in the day and he goes, hi, Craig, tell me a little about you and da-da-da-da. He goes, here's what I want you to do. He goes, I want you to, when you wake up tomorrow morning, I want you to get up and I want you to say the Serenity Prayer. Then I want you to say the 3rd step prayer. Then I want you to go have a coffee and I want you to say to God, I'm here to listen and do as you want me to do. And so I did that every day for 30 days. And he said, I want you to go to a meeting every day and I want you to get a commitment at every meeting, get a volunteer commitment at every meeting. And I did. And it's like, I was so close to dying that this time I wasn't going to pretend that I knew it all and I knew how to do it and stay sober. I wasn't going to say, I need love in my life, so I'm going to go find a relationship. Or I've been in the program. I was in Alateen and I went to AA meetings as a kid, so I know the 12 steps and all this stuff. It's just, that was the one thing that kept me from getting sober the first time, or kept me from keeping sober. So the story ends, but the beginning is when a week later, after that sobriety date, I went to the meeting in Grant Park. And afterwards, it's just a Saturday afternoon and I don't have anything to do. How do I stay sober when I usually would go to the bar and drink? And so I knew my son wasn't available. He was doing something for school, but I ended up driving up to the house, and I knew that they were preparing for his graduation party. So I went to Illy and I said, hey, how can I help you? And she goes, well, Mitchell's not here. And I said, I know. I said, how can I help you? And she goes, you do yard work? You want to help? It's like, I was anti-yard work. But yeah, I said, yeah, how can I help? And so we worked together. And so somehow, some way, God led me back to this house, which I never thought I would be, somehow, some way, it would take 3 years to make living amends to Illy and then make formal amends. And we would have the best relationship we've ever had in our lives. Somehow, some way, I was led back to make amends to my son, somehow, some way, I'm a better human being and I'm sober because of it, So I go to 4 different meetings a week, regular meetings, but I went to meetings every day of the week, sometimes twice a day. And I took roles in that, secretary or treasurer or in charge of literature, or whatever. I did that. I kept my commitment to have a commitment, so that I could be of service in some way, shape, or form. But so the weird thing is that the weird thing that life throws is Illy now has pancreatic cancer. And so she has had it for 1.5 years now. And last year, she said to me, this is the woman that used to say to me, you're a piece of crap. I don't want you near my son, that sort of thing. Why are you here? To now she says, I know why God led you back here. Where she says, she does this to me. Do you know what that means?
I love you.
Yeah. She does that to me. We didn't say I love you for 20 years, and then all of a sudden it's I love you, and all I'm doing is just doing what God would have me do. And that is just be a good human being, right, and be kind and worry about is there anything that I can get you? The movie Princess Bride, as you wish. You need something, as you wish, And so that would, if I were drinking right now, I'd probably still be of service, but she'd be saying, fuck, he's going to get drunk again.
Yep.
I'd be waking up hungover. I'd be drinking throughout the night. I wouldn't be alert and awake and being able to take care of her, take her to the hospital at 4 a.m., which I did the last time she had to go. I'd be drunk and in a pity party and thinking I'm not worthy to be here. Someone else should be here taking care of her, But God led me back here somehow, some way. Because she asked many times over the last 4.5 years, how did you get back here? And I said, God led me. I have no idea. God led me. But it's all because of this amazing sobriety that I have. There are lots of details that I left out, but the pertinent ones that made me who I am today, I'm active in the program. I sponsor 3 different guys. One has 11 years sobriety and I have 4.5 years sobriety. I have another one with 1 year sobriety and they just celebrate birthdays or anniversaries. Another one has 2 years. And that gives me joy because I get to go through the book the way my sponsor made me go through the book. And I go, this is what this means. This is when Ebby comes in. And Ebby was, so it's kind of fun. It's really fun to go through. And, part of the reason I went back to my original sponsor was because I saw the notations and how he would explain it to me was like, I'm that kind of guy that likes to be explained that way too. So let me go through him so I can do it for somebody else, Right. So, yeah. So I still, like I said, I still am active, very active. It's not something I have to do. It's something I must do to live a good life. It's either live or die. If I don't live this program and live in gratitude, then I will die. I will ultimately die, because that's when I drink, I commit suicide. I want to commit suicide. When
Yeah.
I'm,
Your have to turns into get tos.
yeah,
I get to go to a meeting today, and I get to sit in a room full of people who know exactly how I feel.
yeah.
You
And
know,
that's the thing.
it's magical.
It's amazing. We have all different walks of life, right? I'm secretary at that Grant Park meeting, and I just go up to people who are new that I've never seen it to me and go, "Hi, how are you? I'm Craig. What's your name?" And they go, "Robert." And I said, "What brought you here today?" I'm like, "My wife, my court card, my whatever." And I said, "Hey, me too." It's just like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, and people ask, "Why do you have to say hi? I'm Craig. I'm an alcoholic." It's like I say I'm an alcoholic to remind myself that I can't drink normally, that I can't go out. I don't want to fool myself ever again to think that I can go do this thing without this program.
Well, and it's such a huge part because I do the same thing. It's such a, and I do that. Hell, I find myself doing that just to normal, I air quote, you know what I mean, normal people.
Yes.
It's like because I don't carry any shame with that anymore. That's part of
Yeah.
who I
No.
am. And what's amazing is if I stay open and willing, right? That willingness word. If I stay willing for God to use that, however God sees fit, the people that He puts in front of me when I say, if you're within reach for 5 minutes, you're going to know I'm an alcoholic. You're just, I don't
Right.
intend to tell people, it just comes up. And the
Right.
number of people that says, "Oh my gosh, my sister," or I'm struggling, or God just always manages to use that, and I never want to not be amazed at that. But I do have to ask you, were you able to reestablish a relationship with your daughter?
No, I did reach out in 2009 via Facebook. I found her. She looked exactly like her in adult form. I reached out, and I was lost at that moment, and I was just looking. I don't know what happened, but I did a search. I found her. I found friends of friends and friends and stuff like that. And I reached out, and she did not respond. But one of those people who turned on me, that was friends with her mother, um, reached out to me and said, um, Emily knows everything about you. Don't ever contact her again, or we'll contact the police and say you're stalking her and all that stuff. And that was like, whoa, that put me down a
Oh,
hole
sure.
again.
Yeah.
And I struggle with the idea. She's in my daily prayers. So when I say good morning, God, please,
Mm-hmm.
she is one of those people in those prayers. And I just started doing that. I said, why didn't I do that earlier? So I started doing that this year. Um, but if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Well, and I gotta tell you, well, and I'm glad that you have that mentality, because too, I'll be 12 years sober in this March, and there is still some, let's just call it estranged relationships
Yeah.
within my family, but it's one of those things that when you can sit back, and I think our book says, we're able to look at people and just know that they're probably spiritually sick too. And so we are going to do the next right thing. We're going to we're not going to shrink, we're not going to puff up. We're just going to be who we authentically are in God, and leave the results to Him. And I'm
Right.
telling you, Craig, 100% of the time over the past 12 years, almost 12 years that I have done that, it's worked out beautifully. And I know that it's going to work out that way with my children as well. I can love them from afar, and pray for them every single thing. I pray for myself, and just turn around and help the next person that I can, and
Right.
just be willing to be of service. And so I love that you do that. And I love that you're willing to share your story, because what I heard you say is when you went back to the meeting, and the ladies grabbed you, and Craig needs help. What's your phone number? The word that I heard you that just is the epitome of, to me, our program is hope.
Yeah.
I had none. I had
Right.
no hope for you. I had no hope for me. I had no help for the world that was going to the hell in a handbasket for all the things that I had no control over. It just, what was the point? And to have that hope is just, I mean, that's life. That is the lifeblood that runs through my body right now is a hope, of the next day that I'll be able to be of service, and that God will use the mess that I created to be the message to reach someone else, and that's just, I love that about you. And I'm so grateful that you were willing to sit down and talk to me and share your story.
Thank you. No, it's a privilege. I honored to do it.
Well, stay in touch with me, and I will do the same. And I will pray for you and your two children, and Illy, yeah, and her illness. And I know that she's in God's hands, and in His capable healing hands. So thank you so much for joining the Purpose Driven Sobriety. Keep coming back. Thanks for listening to Purpose Driven Sobriety. Keep coming back.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.
I married a guy I knew most of my life. We knew each other in high school and even went to prom together. But little did I know, I did not know him at all. I will call my now ex-husband, Dirty Chad.
Hey y'all, this is April
And this is Caroline.
with Bloody Happy Hour.
And we are bringing to you Dirty Chad. Get it on patreon.com/bloodyhappyhour exclusively for all the details and all the red flags.
Caroline's finally telling her story.
My truth.